Hi, everyone. This is Farooq, and this is Mindset of a Champion. And we have Roger Renik on today, and he will be interviewed. He is a friend as well as he speaks about depression, and he's a depression expert, in addition to being a member of a senior community where he hosts a support group. So welcome, Roger.
Sure.
Why don't you let people know anything that I missed out on? Introduce yourself. Let us know what you have going on, and give us a little snapshot of you.
Sure. Well, thank you. Thank you, Farooq. I appreciate that. Yes, as mentioned, my name is Roger Renik, and I've been living in the moment of depression and moments that we all have faced over time. I think some um, people are built differently. Some people will, the old expression, have things bounce off of them, although I'm not even sure if that's accurate or not, because a lot of people might say that, but they take things inside. For me, my journey actually with depression kind of, no, not kind of, it began many years ago. Myself, and I have an older brother. My dad passed away suddenly in 1982. And ironically, it was one of those where you could say that that was the best and worst years of my life, because again, that was the year that my father passed away. It was also the year that I got married. And that was, of course, the best. My dad's passing left my mom at home by herself. She lived in Chicago. And myself and my brother became, over time, the caregivers. And for the first many years afterwards, obviously I had moved out. I was living with, obviously with my wife. And for many years to follow, a good 10, 15 years afterwards, we lived close to my mom. So she was always a part of family activities, get togethers. She was a part of everything we did. However, she was now living alone, which was certainly a change for her as well. The story goes on probably for 20 years or so. And again, those first many years were keeping her included in things. But as she was getting older, we were finding the dependency was becoming more prevalent, and which was fine. Fine in the sense of family was always there to help. Now, over the course of those years in my life, married, had two wonderful children. Well, still have wonderful children, and I was working evenings at that time. At that time, so the life balance was definitely becoming off, and it became more off as things were going on. And again, me and my brother, we took care of our mom. We did everything we could for her. But again, as I said, as she was getting older and becoming more dependent, we were seeing perhaps the need for some changes in her life. And this was tough for her too. One of the things that were strongly encouraged was that she come and live with family. And she absolutely did not want any part of that. And the choice to live at home was hers. And we went along with that because, again, that was her choice. But what was happening was we were being pulled into things more and more. And again, I'm skipping so many years and so many small areas that, well, weren't small at the time, but we can jump ahead a good 20 years plus, and health conditions, health situations became there. So the last 7 years, and when I say the last 7 years, there were 7 years that were absolutely um, excruciatingly challenging for her too. For her too. So again, for myself, it was mom, home, children, work. My brother, very similar circumstances. And for our mom, it became falls, health concerns, falls, hospitals, rehab, home, hospital, rehab, home. And it was a very vicious cycle. And this went on for many years. jumping jumping ahead, way ahead. Our mom had one final fall in her home, and we got her the old life alert, and thought that that was going to be the answer to everything. And well, that wasn't. It was a fateful evening when my brother called and said, "Have you talked to mom today?" I said, "Well, yeah, this morning." He said, "Well, I've been trying to reach her for hours and no response." So he said, "Okay, we'll meet you over there in a couple minutes." So we both got in the cars and head over to her house, and there she was on the floor in the hallway. She had fallen. Life alert was there. Did not want to use it. Didn't want to bother anybody. That was her word, which is such a bittersweet comment. You know, didn't want to bother anybody. So she went into the hospital, and that was a decision where we had to make that decision that this couldn't happen. She could not be at home anymore. And Farooq, again, I'm jumping through
No,
various
I
parts.
no, I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, various parts of this, but so she wound up, in a assist independent living, which did not work well. She went into assisted living, which did not work well, and then finally into a nursing home, and was there for maybe a year and a half, and she passed away. What you would think, whenever I tell this story, and I've said it many times in my life, and it's picture word for word, how I always explain it. What you would think is that this was the ending of the story. And for me, it was just the beginning, because afterwards, after she had passed, went through a real dark time. And that's could be a whole nother episode of what I mean by dark time, but really fell into a very deep depression. And it was the encouragement of my wife, family, my kids. They were getting older at that time, and even my brother. We talked all the time about this. And what we noticed was, when we'd have family gatherings, it would be family in one area and me and my brother in another area with our cigar and a glass of gin in our hand, and we would talk for hours. And it was 99% about mom, what we had experienced. I mean, of course, what she had experienced as well. And then we'd go back to family, and and that was kind of pushed back, pushed aside again. What led into my change was very another fateful evening, and I was with my family, my kids and my wife. It was 4th of July, and we were at a 4th of July festival, or whatever you want to call it, fireworks. And I always have a tendency to get a little weepy here, because this was a turning point in my life, and people were laughing, smiling, oh, and I started crying. And I was sitting there crying my eyes out, as you will. And my wife was, "What's wrong?" And I finally answered honestly, and I said, "I don't know. I don't know what's wrong. I don't know." So I was strongly encouraged to seek professional help, which I did. Which I did. So I was on medication for about 5 years, actually almost 6 years. And that experience is what really led into a real look at life. What is life? George Harrison song, "What is life?" And there's 1,000 different answers by 1,000 different people. But what I went through, and again, I'm not excluding anybody, my brother, my mom, not excluding anybody, because what they went through was detrimental too. But for myself, that was really gave me a chance to really look at myself, how things were, how life was, and the many challenges that life offers. And you accept what you're given, but it's sometimes how you take it in that really can affect your overall mental health and physical health as well. There's a strong connection between mental health and physical health, very strong connection. So that's what really introduced me to the world of depression. What is depression? What is this? What is it? Yes, I feel bad. Yes, I feel sad, and we all get that. We all get that. But there's levels where you definitely need assistance. And 99% of people that I talk to or have talked to over the years, no, I don't need any help. No, I'm fine. I'm fine. Good for you. Good. That's a good start. But are you really? Are you
Do,
really fine? Yeah.
do you believe that? Well, a couple of questions. I'm gonna
Yeah.
unpack this
Please.
just a little bit. So a couple of questions. Do you believe that taking care of your mother or the mourning process was I don't want to say like a starter, but kind of contributed to your depression or
Absolutely.
the beginning of your depression?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. What I found out for through therapy, and I went to a psychologist, and after one conversation, she's wonderful person. She said, I can take you to this level, but you need to go further. You need a psychologist, an actual, psychiatrist. I'm sorry,
Psychiatrist, yes.
psychiatrist. Yeah, and yeah, that was my. I mean, I went through therapy for a while, but an actual psychiatrist is the one. And it sounds, the response of 5 years of therapy comes down to almost one single word. And again, this sounds this sounds like you're really minimizing it, but the word that came out of all this was guilt. Guilt. It was
Yeah.
guilt. I
I,
didn't.
yeah.
I didn't do enough. We didn't do enough. We forced our mom out of her house. We did this. And our mom was fighting, not fighting, but she was against everything we were doing, even though it was ultimately in her best interest. We couldn't put anybody in her home to be with her to help. That was a no. We couldn't do anything. We couldn't do anything, because she was against everything until we got to that point. So the word guilt uh, is really 99.999% of what was going on, the feeling, the emotion that was going on through all this, that we didn't do enough. I didn't do enough.
How did you know that or how did you differentiate between mourning and that sadness of
Hmm.
losing someone and
Hmm.
knowing that it was something more like that it was depression or
Yeah.
or was there really like a transition there because it almost sounds like you went through uh, a lot of mourning
Hmm.
and then you gradually found yourself uh in in the grasp of depression.
Yeah. It kind of went hand in hand. I think, if what was explained over time, I mean, our 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 dad's passing suddenly was obviously, that was, well, I mean, that was, yeah, as it would be for anybody.
Mm-hmm.
you know the mourning period, I think, went right into, that was chapter one. Chapter two was the care of our mom and how that was going to be over the course of time. If It's been strongly suggested that if our mom was the individual that went along with what we were saying, if that makes sense. We were,
Yeah, yeah.
if said, but the strong, I use the term fighting, that the word isn't fighting, but we had to make all the choices for her. If and she wasn't, but if her personality would have said, you know what, right, I do need help. Yes, I do need this. I do need that. I need to sell this house. I need to do this. I need to do that. If that had been her way, it might have lessened the emotions that we were going through, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And for me, again, had just been married, had just been married, was working evenings. So I was starting at noon, and I'd be, go by my mom in the morning, help her or take her shopping or whatever. So I wouldn't be getting home till 10, 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. So seeing my kids, and my wife was becoming less and less. I mean, I lived here, but I wasn't seen a lot. And on weekends, it was running to, again, alter with my brother to take care of mom, which we did, I mean, which we would do. But it was a life balance that was so incredibly unequal. It was, there was no time in taking care of myself. That did not exist. I took care of others. And that was 7, 8 years worth. And that's a long time. That's a long time.
So, how do you integrate your life when you're going through depression treatment?
Hmm.
How do you integrate your life so that you don't fall into those pitfalls again? How do you do it so that, because like I know you in real life,
Hmm.
and your personality, you're a helper, and you're
Yeah.
you're uh, you're one of the good guys, and so wherever you can lend a hand, you do. And I think that there's a lot of people that are like that, that lead with their heart and with kindness, but then they're prone to stretching themselves thin,
Right.
and
Right.
not really making time for themselves. So
Right.
how do you reconstruct your life while going through depression treatment so that you do make time
Hmm.
for what's important to you, and so that you're not always looking for the next person or the
Hmm.
next thing to help or to resolve?
Right. I think there's two responses. One is you constantly hear, and even today, with things that are going on in the world today, about taking time for yourself. That is such a cliche, and I almost hate
Yeah.
that. I almost I
Wow.
almost I almost hate that expression, but yet it's really true. And the other thing, Farouk, is one of the gifts that we have as human beings is the ability to do what you and me are doing right now. We're talking through those years, and I referenced this a couple minutes ago when family gatherings. It'd be me and my brother in one area of the room, and we would just be talking, and we'd laugh, we'd cry, we would just sit and talk. And that is one of the most incredibly difficult things for people to do. And I'm raising my hand here. There it is. I'm raising my hand to be the first one to admit it, because I didn't want to talk about it. I had many ears to listen to me, but I did not want to talk about it. Was I ashamed? To tell people I'm on medication to control my feelings. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, I didn't want to talk about it. I did not want to talk about it. And I think in some cases, when you say that, yeah, you might have others scratching their head saying, "What?" But believe me, I've seen it. I've seen it. We referenced earlier the support group, and case in point, it 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 was getting people together to sit down with each other. Those who have been in similar, different circumstances, similar, perhaps different. I mean, everybody's situation is different, but the ability to open your mouth and talk about it, it's incredible medicine. And I referenced I was on Zoloft for almost 6 years. I chose, and I'm not looking for this because I chose that I didn't want to do that anymore. I told the
Yeah.
doctor, I said, no, no, medication is not. And she said, oh, well, and this is going to sound mean, and I don't mean it to, but oh, well, you can't do it. no, this is my life. Yes, I can do that. Yes, I can do it because I want to do that. So I got off of it, and yeah, wasn't easy. It wasn't
Mhm.
easy. It wasn't that fallback. I have medication, and I'm not saying that there's not people that do constantly need it. I know that's the case, but for me individually, I chose to get off of it. I said I don't want to be that's not who I am. I don't want to be on this. You know.
It sounds to me like uh, there are two tools that you employed to get or to overcome your depression.
Hmm.
The first being communication,
Yeah.
and the second being acceptance. I
Yes.
think that you used acceptance, for allowing yourself to say that the experience that you had with your mom was okay,
Hmm.
and you
Hmm.
gradually came to that realization or that acceptance that uh, that's how it was.
Right.
And so
Right.
I think when our minds struggle with accepting something, we create undue resistance in our lives.
Absolutely.
It just happens
Yes.
because we're struggling with it internally. It shows up externally,
Hmm.
and so
Hmm.
it's interesting. Do you believe that there's other keys that you used for overcoming your depression?
Yeah. Daily life, and again, this is going to sound so generic. Yeah. I don't. There's not a blood test that you take and say, "Oh, yep, he's got the depression chromosome," and that's floating around in there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I think myself, and I think there's others who are prone to it because of, and fill in the blank, whatever that might be. Yeah, we all get down, and believe me, I mean, this year particularly, I mean, my goodness, if the cases, a lot of things mentally on the mental health side have just skyrocketed this year, and absolutely can understand why. Yeah, I think in some cases it's how you look at things, and I'm not saying that you're going to have a catastrophic event happen in your life and you're going to go, oh, yeah, so what, move on. Yeah, but I think it's also daily living and how you treat yourself, and how you can look at things perhaps differently, perhaps not with a negative. But believe it or not, yeah, and I'm saying this, and you referenced, how I am and how I appear, and yes, that is me. However, the other side, and not that there's two sides of me, but I've always had the tendency to look at a negative before I looked at the positive.
Yeah, and
And
that reframing is crucial
absolutely,
for recovery.
absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
And if you learn to look at the positive first, and believe me, I don't know that that mission is ever accomplished, but if you know that you can look at something positive before the negative, that helps too, I believe. Yeah, I'm still who I am. I still believe that I would be the first one to fall into a depression for whatever circumstance you might name. And it's not that I have that gene in me, but it's how I am. However, I've learned over the course of years that there really is more good than bad. And despite individuals and the life experiences that others go through, which are 99% more detrimental than mine were, I'm sure. But it's also how you look at things, and are you going to allow yourself, which is a strong expression, and that's so hard to explain, if you're going to allow yourself to be at that bottom, on the very bottom of something, or can you pick yourself up by, I mean, go for a walk. I mean, that's another thing that I love. I love walking. And medically, it's been perhaps suggested that walking does help your mental mind as well. You know,
Well,
um,
a movement does. Movement gets
absolutely.
you, yeah, any
Absolutely.
sort of movement, walking,
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because even though depression, there isn't like a gene for depression or like resiliency, uh, from my perspective, is a muscle within all of us, right? Like it's
Hmm.
something that we can build and develop.
Right.
And it sounds like the 7 dark years that you mentioned, that you
Hmm.
went through hell, it sounds like that was just, if we were to reframe it, building your resiliency muscle, and
Yes.
and
Yes.
and building you to get to a point where you could withstand the
Hmm.
pressures of daily life.
Hmm.
I was speaking to a young lady the other day who told me, I didn't understand all of the issues that I was having inside till after COVID happened. Because I
Yes.
and I think the reason that we're having such a mental health crisis in our nation right now is because of the fact that people are staying still, and
Hmm.
people are staying at home, and they're reflecting on not only their life, but they're reflecting on their inner world.
Hmm.
And at
Hmm.
times, when you get real quiet, you realize, wait, uh, I'm not happy,
Right.
and in
Right.
fact, my life isn't really something that I like. And
Right.
so I think that gradually there will be a shift where people will realize that there has to be a balance between your mental health and your external world,
Hmm.
and you have to. This probably sounds cliche too. You see, you have me doing it now, but like where you make yourself a priority, and
Yeah.
so yeah,
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. 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 It's so difficult for you to step aside and look at yourself, and to see, what do I see here? What do I see here? Do I see somebody who's crying all day, doesn't want to get out of bed, is I mean, still working. I mean that's one of the things that I also have to include. I the support that I had, my family, even though, and I say this so respectfully to others, but you'll have people come up to you, and whether it's family, friends, and again, I mean this with the highest respect, but you'll have people look at you and go, I understand. I understand.
yeah. They say that all the time
Oh,
to me too. Yeah.
Farooq. No, 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 no. You
Yeah.
haven't a clue. You haven't a clue.
Yeah.
But that's that's the human response, and that's fine. There's nothing. But when that's being said, yeah, do you really understand? No,
Yeah, I had to
absolutely not.
reframe it, that I had to reframe it in my mind, even when I was a little kid, that it comes from a good place. Like
Yes,
them saying they
absolutely.
understand comes from a good place. Like they
Yep.
want to empathize with you,
Yeah.
but it sounds like so off-putting when they
Yes.
do say it,
Yes. Yeah.
because it's like, wait, you don't really understand.
Right. And
Yeah.
then if you look back at him, say, well, you know what? If you do understand, let's go talk. Let me talk for the next 2 hours about my life, and let me tell you. And then you're going to get that. Geez, look at the time. I got to get go. And that too is not mean, but in some cases that's what it is. But if you have others who have been through similar or just stories, it's that connection of, and not being ashamed of who you are, what you've done, how low you've been, but knowing that you've grown that much more out of where you were 2, 3, 4, 7, 10 years ago. Yeah. If you can look back at that and said, here's how I was, here's how I am, then
Yeah, you have to
you're
you have to learn
yeah,
to celebrate those victories.
absolutely. Absolutely.
But at the same time, I think it's important to also celebrate the present. Like,
Yes.
there's things that we do every day that we don't give credit for, like
Right.
whether that be help someone or
Yep.
whatever it is. I mean, I clap for myself every time I get out of bed. You know, uh, you know. But I wanted to ask, as far as your support work goes,
Yes.
with the support group, do you ever find that like, because you're an empathetic person that I know you to be, do you ever find that other people's emotions, whether that be sadness or uh, guilt or
Mhm.
anger, uh, that you take them in and you try to make them your own? Do you ever find that there's that uh, conflict that exists there?
It's initially, and I think my expression would be when you say I feel sorry for somebody, and that's whatever that might be. I think how I view others now, who have expressed what they have gone through. I think my tendency now is to look at others and, well, I can't do it now, but I mean, the old high five or a hug, or to look at somebody else in reverence of, you, this is your story, this was your dark place, this was your, um when I first got the support group going. Yeah, I had no clue, because here I am offering support, and I was still, kind of deal with my own stuff. But you know hearing the stories of others, and you can always, again, one more cliche, going to throw it out, where there's always somebody worse than you.
Yeah, it's true.
Somebody's
It's
experience,
true.
yours, mine is nothing, compared to whoever's. you know I think when you use the expression taking in somebody, as a friend, as a companion meaning somebody who's shared we're in the same room together, maybe I'll put it that way. We've shared life experiences, perhaps similar, so we're companions in that respect. But I probably cannot totally fix anybody's problem, because I can be empathetic, I can listen, I can offer suggestions and support. So for me, that's the taking in. If I'm making sense
That
there.
makes, yeah, it makes
Yeah,
complete
yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Just opening up my ears and mouth, and not necessarily as an expert, but somebody who can take your hand and say, here's what I've gone through. What have you gone through? Compare notes, or whatever the expression might be.
Yeah,
But
it's that place that you come from.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. So to take somebody under, like, almost like a counselor or something like that, not necessarily, because again, my everybody's story is different. Everybody's might be similar, but everybody has their own, and we can share and we can bounce off each other, but not, I don't know that we can take each other in that respect. We have to take that path to a degree by ourselves, but knowing the support of others is out there, which again, to me, is so critical. Support and somebody to listen is so key. I can't stress that enough. It really, you know 10 years ago, or many, many, many years ago, you couldn't get me to open up for anything. And I can ask my family that I never shared a lot. I kept everything inside. And now today you just can't shut me up, as you're
Yeah,
probably hearing.
well, that's the story. That's the story of my life, actually.
Yeah,
But it's interesting because uh, your story is an illustration of what happens when you transition from why, why
mhm,
me, why did this happen, why
yes,
did I lose my dad at a young age, why is my mom gone now, to
right,
how do I
yes,
overcome, how do I get out of this,
right,
and
right.
it's just a testimony to your character and your strength, and it's something that it's a wonderful thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes just knowing and accepting, the word acceptance again, that sometimes there are no answers. There's not one solid answer. There might be a lot of, why does somebody die at 59 years old in 1982? And, my dad, why? I don't know.
Uh,
I don't know. I
I
don't know.
agree. I think
Yeah.
that yeah, acceptance plays a key role in that. I think once we surrender to that acceptance, that's when miracles happen, and that's
Hmm.
when we
Hmm.
realize that we can continue our journey forward. You
Right,
know.
right. And you do learn. You do learn. It's so easy to say you learn from experience, and that again, that's such a easy statement to say, and you might not realize it at the time, but
Mhm.
when you get to that point again where you can stop, look back a bit, and then say, "Whoa, look what I just figured out or learned." I think that helps self pride too in knowing that you can do things. Humans are incredible. I mean, we are an incredible species, and there's so much that we're capable of, and sometimes you just don't know where to tap that, and sometimes it's there and it's happening all around you, but you don't realize it until the moment that you realize it,
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. I mean, when you're going through healing, it's best to be patient with yourself and just keep on pushing.
yes,
So
absolutely.
I thank you so much for coming on. You're my first guest, and
Whoa, all righty.
yeah, that's exciting stuff. So I thank you so much, and
Absolutely,
I
Farouk.
thank you for your world of wisdom and your experience.
Thank
And
you.
have a great day.
You do the same.
All
Thank you,
right,
Farouk.
talk to
Take
you
care.
later.
Bye bye.
You too. Bye.